Who's excited for story time? I know I am. Today's story is about the time that I chopped my thumb off. If that sounds like something you want to listen to, something that you enjoy, stick around. Let's pull up your comfy beanbag chairs and just, get comfortable while we proceed to have some fun. But first, hello my peeps! If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. And if you're coming back for more, thank you. I appreciate you. I really do. I so totally appreciate you. Anyways, how's about we get into it, huh? You guys are in for a treat, let me tell you. So, okay, this story starts with me in my early 20s. Okay, so I lived in a 70s style trailer 27 steps away from my cousin, which on a drunken night we found out. But I digress. So it was in the middle to end of April, and it was unusually cold that year for that time of year. We had just encountered snow, and it was freezing that night. Like we had a blanket of frozen water crossed everything. You could see the glistening on the road. So here it is. I don't know, probably about 10 o'clock at night is when I got home from visiting friends, and wasn't drinking. I was plumb sober. So this experience I can't even blame on being drunk, unfortunately. I decided I was going to start a fire, and I had just enough small pieces of wood and kindling to get that fire going, and I would be left with one giant piece of wood. So I got the fire going, and then I went to bed. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, so 2 hours later, figure midnight is when I went to sleep. 2 o'clock is when I was awoken to frost. I mean, I was freezing, shivering. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I could see my frost inside my trailer. And mind you, the wood burning stove was my primary source of heat. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I get up and I take that one piece of dry wood that I still had, which was, probably about that big around, and not a single side of it had any flat surface. It was all lopsided. So anyways, I'm fixing to chop some kindling off of this lopsided piece of wood that I can only hold up by putting in between my knees, because that's really smart to do. And I'm chopping kindling, and then my cat, Drago, whom I was not supposed to have, decides he's going to run right in front of me and climb up the curtains. And that catches my attention. Mind you, I'm in mid-swing as he does this, and my attention goes from paying attention to what I'm doing to him, because I'm not supposed to have a cat. And he's fixing to tear down the curtains. So we go from mid-swing to paying attention to what I'm doing to paying attention to him and hitting my thumb. And it took a minute. It took a little minute for me to realize, for the light bulb to go off, like doo, 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 doo. The light bulb goes off. Hey, I was using an axe. Not like, just it was one of those. Synapses was misfiring. I don't know. It took a minute, and then when I realized that it was an axe that I was using, I had to mentally collect myself and prepare for what I was about to see. So I took in a deep breath, let it out, and then I pulled my thumb up like this. and it's just hanging. It's hanging on by a thread. Oh crap, I'm gonna need stitches. So as I'm sitting here contemplating what my next move is going to be, I decide I'm going to light a cigarette, because when you're a smoker, and I used to be, I'm no longer, but when I was smoking, that was anytime I got hurt or was frustrated or whatever, that was the first thing I wanted, was a cigarette. So lit a cigarette and then called my mom, and I asked her, did I wake you? Her response was, no, I tend to make it a habit to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning. Duh, I was asleep. So I was like, well, okay, sorry to wake you, and I cut my thumb. It's going to need stitches. Can you please come and get me? And with, you know, half asleep sound of her voice on the other end saying, yes, just give me a few minutes and I'll be there as soon as I can be. Mind you, my cousin, who's 27 steps away from me, is asleep in the trailer next door to me. And the reason I didn't go to her is because I figured, well, she has to work the next morning. She has to be to work at 6. It's already almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and she's gonna have to wake up in just a little bit and go to work. I didn't want her missing any work on my account, so I called my mom, who wasn't working at the time. So mom asked me on the other end, she says, before we hung up, she asks, did you stop the bleeding? And my response to that was, no, not yet. I wanted to get you on your way, and as soon as we hang up, I'll go take care of that. Well, it wasn't until that moment that I went to put direct pressure over my thumb with a wet paper towel that I almost passed out. Like, as soon as I did this, I almost hit the floor. So I kind of loosely wrapped it, and then I just kind of held pressure down under here. So I would kind of tourniquet it with my fingers, and then I'd let it go so that the blood would continue to flow, and so on and so forth. I just did that a lot. My mom gets there, and I think she actually had to help me put on a jacket, because I couldn't. It was a thing. So she helps me put on the jacket, we get loaded up in the car, we take off. It's not until we get to the hospital that she realizes, or that she learns, because of the staff asking me what happened, that's when mom learns that I was using an axe. I chopped my thumb off with an axe. And she kind of gives me this, you did what with what? And I was like, well, yeah, I was chopping wood. What'd you think I was doing? I thought you were chopping vegetables or something, she says. I'm like, no. So they get me back, they get it cleaned up, and the doctor comes in, he's like, you know, he looks at the x-rays, he says, you chopped through the bone on your thumb. And I thought he was joking with me. I asked him, are you joking with me? He says, what's the purpose behind me joking with you about something like this? You chopped through your thumb. You crushed it, and you chopped through it. And so he showed me on the x-ray, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, that's fun stuff. So yes, he tells me everything I did and what it's gonna take, and then they numb me up, and kudos to this doctor, whoever he was. I don't remember his name, but I do remember he went above and beyond to make sure that things got done correctly. He took the time to manipulate my thumb before they stitched it back together. Otherwise, in 10 to 12 days, I was gonna have to get it rebroken to get it positioned, and that just, nobody wants that. So kudos to that doctor for taking the time to do it right. Okay, so now's when the story gets kind of funny. Couple of days later, after my days off, my normal days off, I went back to work, and while I was there, I'll just say that I used to work at a truck stop, and that truck stop's name will remain anonymous, but just know that I was the person who wrote up the services as well as cashed people out. And truck drivers are curious people. I mean, not just truck drivers, everyone. A lot of people are curious. I imagine if I worked at Walmart, the same thing would have happened. But so I was, you know, working at this truck stop, and every driver that would come in would ask me, you know, what happened to your thumb? Because it was wrapped up. You know, I had it in a splint, wrapped in blue, what is that stuff called? The stretchy, like, splinted in a metal aluminum splint, wrapped in blue K-Flex. I think it's called K-Flex. Blue K-Flex. It was wrapped in blue K-Flex, and so it stuck out literally like a sore thumb. and so every driver that would come in would be like, well, what'd you do to your thumb? And I finally, you know, got tired of telling the same story over and over and over. So it was probably about the middle of my first day back to work that I convinced a driver of this. You know, this driver comes in, and he's like, well, what'd you do to your thumb? And me being just annoyed to the max at telling the same story over and over and over, I was like, well, you're not going to believe me if I tell you. He says, well, try me. And I was like, I'm telling you, it's not even worth me saying. You're not going to believe me. He says, well, try me. I was like, okay, but I warned you. I said you're not going to believe me. And I proceed to tell him this fib. I proceed to tell him that I was hiking in the mountains and I came across a beaver dam. And I got a little too close to this beaver dam, and this angry beaver came out and bit my thumb off. And his response, I crap you not, is, really? And I was like, no. But they did take gullible out of the dictionary and replace it with your name. That's the story of when I chopped off my thumb. And just so you guys can see, there is a difference in the length of this thumb, which is my normal thumb, and this thumb, which is not normal at all. I still don't have any feeling on the tip. This happened 10 years ago already. It's been 10 years ago, something like that. So I guess the takeaway from this story would be, if you're chopping wood, pay attention to what you're doing. Anyways, that's really all I got for you on this one. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know a lot of people get a kick out of that story, so hopefully you did. And until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and most of all, stay blessed.
Wish I had a tail. Wish I had a tail.